Welcome to Startup Hype. I am your host, Christy Tercios. Today we're going to meet Dario Sattui, a renowned winemaker and owner of two wineries, Satoui and a castle called Castello di Amorosa. You heard right, a castle. Both wineries are located in the world famous Napa Valley, California. And today we are here at the Castello di Amorosa. Dario comes from a family of winemakers. He has a bachelor's degree in accounting from San Jose State University and a master's in business administration from the University of California, Berkeley. With his passion of restarting his great-grandfather's winemaking business and medieval architecture, he built his dream winery, the Castello di Amorosa, the Castle of Love, and has indeed been a labor of love. Let's go find out how Dario's dream became a reality.
Stay motivated.
Stay hyped.
This is Startup Hype.
Dario, thank you so much for having us here. This castle is amazing. It's beautiful. Salute.
Salute.
I'm so excited. Yes.
And thank you for being thoughtful enough to come to Castello di Amorosa. It's much appreciated.
It's my pleasure. But tell me, how did you think about building a castle? Did you one day just say, or just wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to build a castle? How did it come?
No, it didn't happen like that. What happened is I took a sojourn to Rome for 6.5 months. And on the weekends, I would rent a car and go up to Tuscany and Umbria. And I found that I fell in love with medieval architecture. And back in the late 80s, there were a lot of abandoned farmhouses, and there were even abandoned castles, churches, palaces. And so virtually every weekend I went, and I just fell in love with them. So I'd always take a tape measure, a camera, a hammer, and a sketch pad. And then if I couldn't get into a place, and if it weren't abandoned, I'd try to find a window to pry open, or I'd pry open the door. That's why the hammer. And I'd never steal anything.
Troublemaker.
And then if I couldn't get in to a place I really wanted to go into, I'd pretend I had money, and I'd wear a suit and tie. I'd go to a real estate office and say, I want to buy a castle. What do you have to show me? And of course, I didn't have the money for the castle. And so I got into a lot of places that way. And right now, I own a 1,000-year-old monastery in Italy. I have a disease. I know it. It's incurable. I own a Medici palace in southern Tuscany and part of a castle hotel.
That's amazing. But building a 13th century Tuscan castle.
Okay. Here's what happened.
It's crazy. But hold on, building it, right? And it took you about 15 years. What were some of the challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Okay. Probably the two biggest challenges were the county of Napa. I hope none of them watch this.
Oh, yeah,
but they're really strict.
Yeah.
And I could use more profane language, but I won't do it. And the know-how, At one point, we hired 6 master masons from Italy. I had to pay their airfare. I had to pay them a lot of money. I had to pay their lodging, their food. And after 3 weeks of them working here, I saw very little progress, and I went, what the heck's going on? They didn't want to tell me, but finally they did. These guys don't know how to do it. And I thought, well, they're not master masons. They were master masons, but in modern brick and stone masonry.
Nothing
But
authentic
they didn't
like
know
this.
how to do medieval stuff. So what happened, a lot of these are long stories, but I met a guy from Austria, and he was a master builder, and he was crazy like me for medieval architecture, and he learned how to do it. And then the castle has 107 rooms. He built the first 2 rooms. We watched him, we learned from him, and I sent the master masons back home to Italy because it was really expensive, and they couldn't do it anyway.
That's amazing though, but hey, it takes crazy people to come up with these crazy ideas and make them reality. But no wonder you call this a labor of love, right? And so, but I also know that you come from a winemaking family, and I know that you restarted your great-grandfather's winery, Satoui, and you decided to launch into that first winery with only $62,000. What inspired you? What inspired you to do that?
Well, as a kid, I was always an entrepreneur, and I believe you're either born with it or you're not born with it. You can go to business school, MBA, which I did, but you either have it inside of you or you don't have it inside of you. That's my feeling. I could never be an auto mechanic. I could never be an electrical engineer, do what a lot of people, or some people do. But I was always in business for myself since I was 9 years old. And what inspired me, is that the question?
What inspired you? Because you didn't know how to make wine, and you didn't know anything about wine. So how?
As a young kid, I read a little bit about my great-grandfather's winery. Typical Italian, the winery was in San Francisco, and they had full cellars in the Mission District. And typical Italian, they lived upstairs, as they do in a lot of small business in Italy. And so as a kid, as soon as they ring the bell and they'd open the door, it reeked of wine. And so I heard the stories, I saw the photographs, and I played in the cellar among the barrels. And so I resolved that someday I was thinking I had a little business head, that I was going to learn from them and then take over Satoui Winery, restart it. The problem was they went into insurance business and after Prohibition, and they never restarted the winery. So really, I had $5,000 I left over from some money I made in college, and my mother gave me 3 more, and so I had $8,000, and I was only trying to raise $100,000. I was so dumb.
For Satoui, for your first wine.
My first winery, Satoui. Okay. I was so dumb. I didn't know that they'd done a study in Davis, what kind of capital you needed for a capital-intensive business to start a very small winery. And remember, this is 45 years ago.
And what was it? What was the outcome?
They said you needed $1 million.
What?
But I didn't know that. So I thought I could do it on 62,000 or 100,000. I only obtained 62. My brother-in-law put on the roof. He got a share. A friend of mine, Dick Gelati Construction, he put in a foundation, 20 parking spaces. I made him a millionaire, and so he got 10%. But in any event, and I didn't know what I was doing. I drank cheap wine in college, but I think it's important sometimes not to know too much, because when you know too much, you tend to follow
what everyone else is doing.
And so I didn't know what to do, so I did it my way, and so I did a lot of things differently. Satoui was the first one to do weddings in the Napa Valley. Satoui was the second one to do wine clubs. We only sold at the winery. Most wineries, keep off the lawn. All they were trying to do is make a good impression so that when you went back to Idaho or New Jersey, you'd take and buy their wine. Since I didn't know what to do, I decided to sell 100% of the wine direct from Satoui. No stores, no restaurant, no distribution.
But that's very interesting because the mindset that you had was different than a lot of people. Usually a lot of people think, okay, I'm really good at this. Let me start a business in this. But actually, it was the other way for you. You didn't know anything about wine.
But I knew I had a business head. That I knew.
You had a business head.
And I think with a business head, you can learn any type of business.
Yeah, no, I like it. I love the attitude. That's great. But you were mentioning, right, that your wineries are so exclusive that you don't sell to wholesale. I can't find your winery at a restaurant, or I can't find it at a wine store. So I need to come to Castello di Amorosa or to Satoui to get these amazing wines. So what was your whole business purpose behind that? What was your business plan?
Money always comes from me secondarily. Maybe I'd like to prove to myself that I can do it, and I like to give pleasure to customers. I've met a lot
Customers comes first, right?
Yeah, and I've met a lot of great people. I feel great satisfaction. We make a real quality product, and then I also make some money doing it. So from every point of view, I got a lot of satisfaction restarting Satoui. Satoui Winery is the most visited winery in California.
It's beautiful.
And the Castle's second.
Really?
Yeah.
I love it. I love both wineries. But like you said, it's about satisfaction. Are you happy with what you're doing, right? And I think a lot of things start
I made
there.
some mistakes. I was scared to death, especially when I built the castle. I was embarrassed to even tell anybody what I was doing because...
How come?
Well, because I thought I was making a total fool out of myself. I even had nightmares over it.
Because it sounds really weird to say, hey, guess what? I'm building a castle.
Yeah, because, who does that in their right mind, right? And, but in any event, it's worked really well. So
it has. Come on. You made that dream a reality. It's amazing.
I think fear of failure is a great motivator. In the Napa Valley, if you mess up, people like to put you down and talk about you. And so I had to get everything right. I spent countless evenings just reworking, tweaking the plans, going back to Europe. We used only old materials, handmade antique materials, because you can't use modern materials to create something old. And we even used old techniques. All the light fixtures are all made by hand over the open fire.
Wow.
By a blacksmith. The doors, they're all hand planed. All the art, there's about 2,000 nails in the main door of the Great Hall. They're all made by hand. So everything done by hand, even the grout. In the Middle Ages, they lost the art of cement making. The Romans discovered it was lost in the Middle Ages. So we didn't use any cement in the grout between the bricks and the stone. We used lime, sand, and water. That's all we used, because I wanted to do it as what can
authentic.
I say? Fudge.
What is that word?
To replicate the best of my ability the way it would have been done. And in fact, we have a lot of farm animals. Often castles weren't at war for decades. So, so they were just farming centers until there was a war. So I tried to replicate everything the way it would have been done.
That's amazing. But you did mention something, and it shows, right? When you walk around the castle, every little detail, I can tell that you put so much thought into it. But you did mention something very important about learning from failure. Can you give me an example of one time that you felt like you failed, but yet you overcame that failure?
I went to graduate school, Cal, And I'd lived in Sweden, went to college in Sweden also, and this professor there presented the idea of wooden clogs. They have wooden bottoms and leather tops. They wear them a lot, hospitals.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a horrible idea, but I brought some back just to do it, to be nice to him, and we ended up selling all over the United States. Macy's of New York, Lords and Taylor, Filene's of Boston, everywhere. I had two salesmen, one in Boston, one in San Francisco. And I thought I was going to be a millionaire before I ever got out of graduate school.
Clogs are going to make me a millionaire.
The Boston salesman would say, I just sold 3,000 pair to Lords and Taylor. I hadn't even got out of bed yet, it was 3 hours later there. So I met a guy that, you're too young, but Long's drugstores now taken over by CVS. And he financed, I had all these sales and I couldn't finance it. And anyway, Joe Long of Long Drugstores financed me. And in any event, I didn't make my $1 million. And it's several small businesses I failed as well. But I did make a little money in the clog business, and I paid Joe Long back. But I think my feeling is that even in failure, you learn something. And you learn maybe what not to do next time, or what you should be doing. So I think I've had countless businesses since I was 9, 10 years old. But, and not all of them worked. However, I learned from them, hopefully.
Of course. But you're also not known as a businessman. You're also known to be very generous. I know you donated to some organizations. Can you tell me which ones you have and how you chose them?
I donated $2 million to do heart research.
Wow.
Actually, more than 2 million, but to one entity, 2 million. I put up more than $1 million for a preschool in Calistoga. And also, it's a good thing not only for the kids, but for the mothers, working mothers. They can drop their kids off in the morning, pick them up after work. So they're open till 5:30. I donated almost $2 million to build a Boys and Girls Club in Calistoga. They didn't have one. The kids had to go to St. Helena.
Nice.
And then a lot of smaller amounts, 100,000 and 50,000, to a lot of different organizations. I have to say, initially, when I first went into business at Satoui, I didn't donate much. First, I wanted to build my business, and
it's understandable.
I was scared to death of failure. And I lived on the winery floor for a while. I lived in my Volkswagen van for a while. I did everything to sacrifice to not fail with Satoui Winery.
And to build your business. Easy. I could imagine, but it paid off. In the end, it paid off, right?
Yeah, it paid off.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell me a little bit about how did you go about choosing these organizations that you donated to? Does it come?
Well, I knew they needed a Boys and Girls Club. Calistoga and St. Helena are about 9 miles apart. And, how do the kids get there? And especially a lot of the mothers work. So I knew that. And then a person I know called me on the phone and said, would you be interested in, we're trying to develop a new preschool. And I said yes right away.
Nice, you said yes.
And I've incurred a few heart problems, so I wanted to donate money for heart research. And so I'm proud of the fact that I've done it. And my latest project, and that's one reason I know of Mike Hart, I and a mechanical engineer who has a PhD from Cal, we're investigating companies that take discarded plastic that goes into landfills and into the oceans.
Okay.
And which is a shame. It's horrible.
Right.
And converting these into energy. So I'm going to see.
I'm going to see you soon for
Mike Hart from Sierra Energy next week, and this past week we
that's
saw a
Yeah.
company in Santa Rosa called Resynergy. So I'm hoping to invest in that. You know, again, money is always secondary. For me, passion is important, and so I want to do something I can for the community, for the world, whatever.
environment, animals, everyone,
I love it. Every week we buy raw chicken, my wife and I, and we go across the street in the vineyard and we distribute it for the coyotes.
That's amazing.
I do all kinds of things like
Well,
that.
I'm so excited to hear about your upcoming project. That's awesome. But
Thank you.
Dario, with all this experience that you now have as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, and winemaking, what message would you tell our viewers that are watching right now and are waiting to take that next step, that they've been thinking about it, but they're like, oh, I don't know if I should do it, right? They're still trying to make the next
Here's
step.
what I would say. If you have a real aptitude for something, and most people at a young age, they know what they're good at and what they love. And it's not impossible to do, but if there's even some possibility and you're willing to sacrifice and never give up until you achieve your goal, I say go for it. And that's what I did. You know, I was undercapitalized in a very capital intensive business. I made a lot of sacrifices. I started with a hand crank calculator 45 years ago. I mean,
Wow.
I did everything I could. I made all my telephone calls collect. I couldn't even afford a cash register. We had a little wooden box to make change because we retail everything at Satoui. And I wrote up every sale by hand. Everything I could think of. I didn't have a forklift. I didn't have anything. And I rented out the house I had to save money, so I slept in the van or in the winery. But so I believe if you really want to do something badly enough, and you're willing to pay the price, even if you're very much undercapitalized, and it's your dream and you have some aptitude for it, go for it, and there's a good chance you'll achieve it. But you have to have a business head too. A lot of people are just dreamers, and they're not realists.
Yeah.
For instance, when I budget, I try to budget for the worst case, or close to the worst case, and can I survive with that?
Right.
And then hopefully I budget my expenses to a greater extent than what they are, and so far I've done okay.
Well, Dario, no, that's amazing. I think that's a great message. Having the right attitude and never giving up, right? Especially when you have a dream. Dario, I want to thank you so much again for having us here. I really enjoyed talking with you and learning so much about just what it took to create this dream of yours and making it come to reality. And another salute to you. Thank you again. And thank you to everyone watching today. Please don't forget to like our video, comment below, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and especially stay inspired, stay motivated, stay hyped. This is Startup Hype. See you next time.